Dr. Torch, is going to be near to you already.
No.
And that is a very significant
gremlin.
Gremlin may be
Get ready material.
a minimized term for what the effect is. At one point I called this presentation Bleeding to Death Slowly. Because there's a lot of money involved here. Because I think people understand the water world, they understand the size and the impact of these two issues. Let me start a little bit with an introduction to what we're doing. Water Resources has a mission, and that mission is to protect and improve the waters of the state and to protect public health. That's our mission. We don't really do much of that, actually. You all are the ones that do that. You and your staff and the people that are your operators and maintenance people and field staff, those are the people that really make the difference in the state of Tennessee. It isn't a permit that protects water quality. It's a plant, or it's a system, or it's a distribution, or tanks, and those are maintained by your people. So I just want you to know as we start that frankly, we know at the state in the regulatory business that we don't make the difference that you do. And actually that's why I'm here today to talk about this important issue, because you can make a lot more difference than we can. And thank you for what you do for Tennessee. What do we do in Division of Water Resources, or at least what I do? I'm in charge of an engineering services group in the state of Tennessee Division of Water Resources. And we're the guys that probably hold up a lot of your plans because we question the engineers and what they've done and want to make sure they're giving you really good information. So we review preliminary engineering reports, we review the fact that there is supposed to be alternatives analysis in there. It gives you life cycle costs, not just capital costs, so you can make good decisions. We look at engineering reports and designs, and sometimes we send them back to your engineers, and that may slow things down. We also look at the construction documentation, because by state law, no water or wastewater system can be built without our approval of those construction documents. I also have a fiduciary responsibility, I think. Now, I don't have the fiduciary responsibility that you do, which is right down to the spreadsheet or the audit, but I have a fiduciary responsibility because I believe it's my responsibility to make sure that your engineer tells you what things are going to cost. Not only what they're going to cost on bid day, but also over the life of the expected life of that project, so that you can make good decisions. The other thing that we do that has something to do with this presentation today is we can maintain a big picture. Everybody talks about big data. We have the option right now in water and wastewater to have data that looks at the state and it looks at each individual utility or municipality. And it's some of that data and the implications as we study that data that's the genesis of this presentation. In general, this presentation is about financial hemorrhaging due to I&I and financial hemorrhaging due to water loss. It's probably two topics that you think are, if you haven't considered it very seriously, you think are probably the cost of doing business. They're just overhead, and I shouldn't have to worry about it. I hope by the end of this presentation you'll understand that it's not an insignificant amount of money that we're talking about here, that it has far-reaching implications for not only today, tomorrow's spreadsheet and balance sheet and audit, but it has a lot to do with what resources for your utility or municipality in the long term. Let's look first at I&I, inflow or infiltration. That part of your sewer system that is talking about the leaks and groundwater, rainwater that's getting in there and causing problems. You can see on the screen now a figure that looks kind of crazy. It's a little bit like a heart monitor. What this gives us is an idea of what's going on in your system, your sewer. It is all data that comes from the MORs that your staff submits, but the influent to your wastewater treatment plant. look on there, there's a red line. And that red line represents the design capacity of the wastewater treatment plant. So if the little blue spikes are above that, that means you're receiving more water, more wastewater, or wastewater and rainwater probably, into your wastewater treatment plant than it can hydraulically handle and still meet its treatment objectives in many cases. Now there's some other green lines down there. One of the green lines is the dotted line, and that is the 7-day average low flow. In other words, that's probably the amount of water. If you had no other extraneous additions from, say, rainwater or infiltration from groundwater, that's probably the flow that your wastewater would see. That's probably what people are paying for you to treat. Anything above that is extra stuff that you're treating and not being paid for. You also see another line, it's a dotted line, that's the average customer base, assuming a certain BOD, or concentration of the wastewater. If the concentration you're coming into your wastewater treatment plant isn't about 300 milligrams per liter of CBOD, then it's being diluted somehow. And as you can see in most plants, at least the one we've got here, it never gets down that low except for very rarely. So that means that this plant almost always has a significant amount of inflow and infiltration. Now, we get this information from your MORs. We can take them, put them in a spreadsheet. We have a program. We're going to be teaching people, the engineers, how this is done in the future, how to use this program. But basically it tells us a lot about your system. It even tells us how bad your I&I is during a rain event. If I take rain events from the wet part of the year, it turns out that they are proportional to the amount of I&I, the additional flow that comes into your wastewater treatment plant is almost linearly proportional to the amount of rainfall that happens. So if I look at this graph, it says that if I get a 2-day rain, if I have a rainfall of about a ½ an inch in 2 days, that this particular system right here would end up with 2 million gallons extra wastewater because of that 1/2 inch rain event. That's pretty amazing. We can do this for any system, for any year, and we can tell whether you're making progress, reducing I&I, or whether it's getting worse. So we have these tools available. You can have these tools, and we'll be talking about some of the implications of this kind of I&I problem that this particular city had, for example. We know from the big data that 2/3 of the facilities in the state of Tennessee, municipal facilities in particular, or utility districts that have wastewater treatment plants that discharge to surface water, that 2/3 of them treat more than half of their water that they don't have to treat. In other words, it's due to inflow or infiltration into their system. And that 181 of the 242 municipal wastewater treatment plants, or 82% in the state, exceed their rated capacity in the event of a 2-year, 24-hour storm, about 3.4 inches. So you probably fall into that group. Most people do. So what does that cost us? The total I&I treated is 120 billion gallons a year in Tennessee. The average I&I treated is 331 million gallons per day. And if I take a really efficient and actually cheap price to treat that wastewater, $1.80 per 1,000 gallons, that means that utilities and ultimately ratepayers are paying $200 million a year more than they really need to do. So $200 million starts to be real money. Okay, so there are implications, however, beyond just the rates. Yes, there are higher sewer rates. It costs more to pump, it costs more to treat clean water. If there are higher maintenance costs because you've been operating the machinery more, there's higher operational costs, you have to have more operators. There's also a loss of the wastewater treatment plant capacity. If it's treating mostly rainfall half the time, then that's capacity in that wastewater treatment plant that you don't have, that other people could development houses, whatever. It also degrades the receiving waters. If these waters come out of the collection system or they overflow the wastewater treatment plant, it's going to degrade the waters. In particular, algae is a problem that we're worried about. We have all the ingredients for having hazardous algae blooms in the state of Tennessee that would affect even drinking water significantly, and yet we haven't yet had a hazardous algae bloom. But anything where treated or untreated wastewater goes into the streams is a problem that's going to encourage algal growth. It's going to be a problem. Obviously, if the streams in your community are degraded due to wastewater, they're diminished the recreational opportunities and quality of life. The other factor that's probably not considered very much is it really means that when you've got industries or development going on, you're probably going to have to build that wastewater treatment plant larger and sooner than you had anticipated. And that's real money when you figure that wastewater treatment plants are somewhere between $15 and $30 a gallon per day capacity. That's a lot. Ends up being a lot of money. But most important, overflows and releases in your collection system because you have too much iodine or at your wastewater treatment plant is a public health. Okay, let's talk about the other issue that has to do with pipes that you own, and that is water loss. This is a picture of a form. It's not very informative, but just showing it so you'll know what it looks like when your staff hands it to you, maybe. But it is the AWWA, American Water Works Association, Green Water audit software that tries to determine exactly how much water loss you have in your water system. Now, this is not the wastewater anymore. Now we're talking about your water distribution system. This software was designed so that we had a baseline for how we calculated the amount of water loss. The results of this are reported in your audit report to the Comptroller Treasurer every year. And so this number is already out there. It's already available to people. And that data that when you turn in this form is available to anybody. It's public record. This funny little block, you look at the left-hand side, it tries to explain the AWWA water balance. The left-hand side says you either make the water, that's own source, or you buy the water, imported water. And then it goes through dividing that water up in various categories. And it goes over the right-hand column. And the right-hand column divides it up into revenue water, that is water you delivered and got paid for, or non-revenue water, which is water that you delivered but didn't get paid for. Now, actually, some people, and we use the last right-hand column, revenue and non-revenue water, when we do calculations for some grants and stuff. But the AWWA form is a little bit more complicated. It allows you to intervene in where some of these waters might be. There's some subjective elements in there like unbilled metered consumption, and unbilled unmetered consumption that reduce that amount of non-revenue water or water that's lost. And so they separate things into apparent losses, unauthorized consumption, or meter inaccuracies in data, and real losses. That's a physical leak in the line. So don't be too confused by the block diagram here, but just remember that we're trying to figure out what the losses are, real or apparent. If you look at the real and apparent losses in Tennessee in the last year, or at least in 2017, the total apparent losses totaled 4 billion gallons a year, which costs about, generally speaking, about $24 million. The real losses, i.e. the water that actually left the pipe after there's some subjective arguments, was about 48 billion gallons a year, which is worth $41 million. So there is about $65 million in non-revenue water. Water you delivered, even after you factored in some guesses in a year. That's a lot of money. But only 78% of the data was was accepted. In other words, it's valid enough to be counted. So there's another 20% above that, or actually 25% above that, that ought to be counted. So what we're talking about in Tennessee is $83 million a year spread out between the utilities. That's due to product, water, that was produced, but no one got paid for it. And it's lost from the system.
Anybody need to go to the bathroom, take a break?
Mark, do we do chartings like that? We have charts like that. We draw up and see where water flowing.
We have things that are not as technical as what they're doing there. They're taking a ton of
information.
and combining it.
I just want to go ahead and any kind of graph to tell us where our sewer is and what our overflow is.
Yeah, we have daily charts and daily reports that tell us all the things that he's talking about in our individual plan. And we know that we fit well within that 82% he was talking about when during a rain event. We've got a lot of rainwater coming in from a lot of different sources. You know, one of the things that we've talked about with these septic tanks are, you know, some of these lids are cracked, or the septic tanks cracked or collapsing.
Manholes still we got to cover in.
Taps, manholes. You know, there's just nearly everywhere you look in a sewer system, there's a potential for it to be, you know, something to be not tight about it. If you ever want to go look at some of that, or take a little tour of some of it, you know, it'd be pretty interesting to look at, you know, some of those things and look at how some of that data tracks out when it rains here. You know, our average flow going into the plant on a dry day is extremely low, and when it rains, it's off the charts more than we can measure.
The only thing you can do about it is fix all the manholes and some of the taps and drain the water in a different direction to prevent some of that from happening. But that's just really hard to do, right?
The manholes, you know, it's one of those things. It's just a matter of a maintenance program where you have a crew dedicated to going down into manholes and doing the work. And like I say, the septic tanks as it stands right now, we're relying on the homeowners to fix any problem with the septic tank, and then you know, some of these other places like taps that may be leaking, that sort of thing. It would be a major task just trying to figure out where those things are without digging every one of them up and physically looking, because there's really no way to.
We've got a requirement that you tear down a house that's got the old black bubble septic tanks, that if you tear it down and build a new one, that you have to put in a new one.
That's correct.
That's what I've been doing anyway.
Yeah, we won't let anybody reuse one of those old black plastic tanks. You gotta, anybody that tears down a house or something like that, they have to come back with one of the new concrete tanks.
Do we check them that
Yes.
they did it?
Yes. But yeah, there's just a lot of different areas of I&I. I've got some video of matter of fact, let me show you on here.
dumps into the field. You got that one?
I do. I got that whole
Yeah.
thing. Got that whole thing on tape.
I'm very familiar with that one.
I got one I'm gonna see where Lawrence's ditch fills up, and mine never does, and they say I'm stopping it up when I'm not. Just stopping it up at Chun. We don't have to worry about it.
After big flood, you drive out down the highway and see that nice black glaze in the field.
Yes.
That's all that nice sewer water.
Yes. Yes.
I thought I had one there handy.
I do
I
something.
got it on here somewhere. I just had to find
You get it both ways. He's coming both
So what's
ways.
happening? These lost revenue. If you were making widgets and you lost half of the widgets that you made for various and sundry reasons, it would be a hard road to hoe. It would be difficult to make a profit. It's going to drive water rates up the more you make, treat, and pump that you don't get paid for. That means higher operating costs and higher maintenance costs. It means that you're going to deplete your resource. Everybody has raw water that comes from some source, whether it be wells, which seem to be inexhaustible, but not so really, or surface
it.
water.
The places that you see that
So
really
the more
knock
you
it
take
down,
out
and these
that you
things,
don't
they have
actually use
crews
correctly
dedicated just
in
to
depleting that
water
resource.
loss and
That's
I&I.
really important.
And that's all they
Why?
do.
If you have a drought, then you're much more vulnerable to the effects of that drought if you're wasting water. And just like the wastewater treatment plant, if you're building, if you're losing part of your product, in this case, you're going to have to build larger water plants to meet your needs, and you're going to have to build them sooner than necessary. You lose drought resistance, as we talked about. This is particularly important when you look at cities, municipalities that are on ecologically stressed streams, and they have to taking out water from that stream means they not only can't put more wastewater in the stream because they don't have that assimilable capacity, but it also means that there's just not enough water to take it out, to be taken out for the needs that they have. The interesting thing about it is our research has shown that there is a positive return on investment in every case that we've examined where somebody has done a good job of trying to mitigate water losses. It's a positive result, return on investment, and it's a relatively short duration, a couple of years. So, what did we do? We looked at this. We said, okay, I want to interview some big utilities, some groundwater utilities, some surface water utilities, some small utilities, some that are doing a really good job on water loss, some that are not doing anything on water loss, some that are trying and not doing a really good job. And we tried to find out what they knew and what we could learn and what kind of conclusions we could draw from that. We found that 77% think they have a leak detection program. And I say think they have. We didn't interview everybody in the state, so maybe I wouldn't consider that 3 out of 4 are in good shape. So if you're not in the bottom 25%, you're okay. Actually, I don't believe it's more. I believe that probably about 80% is in trouble or could do better. And all the each utility is different, however. That's not unusual. We regulators would like to say everybody and treats everybody the same, but the fact of the matter is that your people have to know your system and work their system, and the solutions are going to be unique to them. There are barriers to doing this. Good staff training, good information about their system, affordable integrated software so that they can do work. But mostly, it's lack of manpower and funding is what people say issue is. So we're going to try to address some of those issues and encourage you to try to solve them at your location as well. We're going to work on inexpensive free training. There's a good bit of training out there right now. Actually, that training, generally speaking, is for those people that are really advanced already. There's not a lot of training for the people that are just beginning to figure out their water loss. There are quite a few systems out there in Tennessee that the first time they know they have a water loss problem is when the operator comes to the board meeting and says, by golly, we can't fill the tank anymore overnight. That's a pretty drastic situation, but it's not completely unheard of in the state. So we want to tailor some leadership or some training for the leaders in those utilities that haven't started, that are getting in trouble, and need to do some simple things to get ahead of the power curve as quickly as possible. But frankly, the number one thing we need to do, and that's why I'm giving this talk and why I believe it's so important, is that the leadership has to change their attitude towards I-9 and water. It's not just the cost of doing business. It's not just overhead that we have to live with. It's hard to find. These things are underground. They're not evident often as to what's going on until it rains, in the case of the sewer probably. So, but the leadership in the utility districts, from the boards to the managers to the operational staff, is absolutely critical. Now there is a mindset that we've established since the 1970s that everything should be done by grant. And that's all we have to do. We don't have to raise rates, we don't have to manage it. We just put in a CDBG, or we go and get a rural development grant or something like that, and we fix the problem once and can forget it. I hate to tell you that that's not going to work. I&I, reduction, water loss, prevention, and reduction is a full-time job all the time. It's not going to, one CDBG is not going to fix it, and that's your entire program, and you don't have to think about it again for another 2 years until you get another CDBG. That's not the way it works, of course. So, HEDAC, what are we doing? Well, this is our response. Water treatment plant and wastewater treatment plant. There is a process, and you want to have a plan for a water waste upgrade to your water plant or upgrade to your wastewater treatment plant. And one of those steps in the process is an alternatives analysis based on life cycle cost. In other words, the real cost of operating a building or expanding the plant. We require that. We're always supposed to require that, but we're really concentrating on that. We need to know, and we're going to ask the question. When your engineer turns in a set of plans to us, does this plan include removal of I&I or the impact of I&I on the size of that plant? Would it be less expensive or more expensive if you address the I&I first before you built that bigger plant? Same is true with water loss. Do you really need a water treatment plant doubled in size when half of your water is being lost into the soil column? Probably not. So we're going to ask those hard questions. And we're going to look at the engineering documents and make sure that that's considered and that you know what the difference is and what the costs are. Now, we're never going to tell you, you have to buy the cheapest thing. My parents didn't buy an Edsel. I didn't buy a Corvair. I didn't buy a Yugo. So there are things, just because they're cheaper, it's not a good idea. There are ways, whatever the funding agency is, to have some subjective elements in the decision as to what to do. You don't have to buy the cheapest, but you ought to know what it costs. When you go for an NPDES permit or an ARAP or withdrawal for a water treatment plant, we're going to look at your I&I and we're going to look at your water loss and ask the question, should we increase that permit for discharging or permit for withdrawing, or are we going to ask you to address the I&I and the water loss first? We're going to be doing some workshops. You're going to training right now. We're going to offer some training that's the 101 level instead of the 401 level on water loss and I&I. And so it will be tailored to the experience that you have, and you can send your people to it, but you need to send the people. The amount of training on water loss reduction and I&I has dropped off because everybody that was really worried about it has already sent their guys and they don't think they've got anything else to learn. I'm talking to you if you've not sent somebody right now in particular. We have a prototype. We have a water system right now that has 68% unaccounted for water losses or non-revenue water. 68%. That means they produce or buy 3 gallons and only get paid for one. That's not an easy situation to stay solvent. So we're going to take this company, or excuse me, this city, and then we're going to work with them to do the things that are less expensive than some of the big projects, but will give them a long-term trajectory towards reducing their water loss. We have changed the scoring for CDBG. Once upon a time, the worse you were, the more money you got automatically. Well, we've changed the scale a little bit, so after you get above about 30%, you don't get the same increment for each additional 10% of water loss that you've got. You can make it up, though, if you choose things that we know give you a return on investment, that you involve the staff, that you've got a systematic measurement options within your CDBG plan. And it doesn't mean in the CDBG that you have to have it already and pay for it. We will actually allow the CDBG to structure, and you'll get the points if you'll use part of the CDBG to build those measurement systems, and so that your staff can do their work. So what am I going to ask you to do? Well, this is where the rubber meets the road. In the last few years, we've done a lot of time talking to operational staff that are in the field, and they've gone. But I have experience as a consulting engineer going to city council and utility board meeting, and I know that you guys make the difference. You can ask one or two questions and change the whole attitude of the utility district and their staff. You can ask the question, what is the cost of making water? I don't know how many utility districts or how many boards actually know the answer to that. I know that I've been to so many of my clients did not know. If you know, more power to you. But if you don't know, ask that question at the next board meeting and see how it changes the atmosphere and the impact in your utility. I would say if you don't have a water loss or I&I guru on the board, that you find out that one guy that's really into it, that's into trending, that's into keeping track of things, that wants to see the data, and you say you are the production and financial guru for the utility districts, and whenever, or the municipality, whenever these issues come up, he's got insight into it. If you don't have one of those people, then maybe you rent one. Maybe you get a consultant that can do something, because maybe you ask your consultant to provide that kind of information. No one can do everything, although we have a couple of utilities that are just about trying to do everything with water loss. But nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something about water loss and I&I, and need to be doing it. Now, I'm a big believer in measurement. If you have a master meter either coming into the wastewater plant or going out of the water plant, it is absolutely imperative that you know how much water you're sending out into your system or coming into your system. Now you say, well, I have the thing calibrated. Is it really calibrated, or just the electronics calibrated? Is there something that actually compares the flow measurement to the volume of water in a given length of time? I would say that most people, when they say they've got their meter calibrated, have called the guy who does the electronics on it, and he's put a sticker and said, the electronics are working. Well, all that means is that the number that's on the computer is accurately being transmitted from the transmitter or the transceiver or whatever it is in the meter. It's not an indication of how accurate your water is. And if you don't know how much water you're sending out in any given day, then you're behind the power curve, and you're not going to know the extent of your problem. So, master meter calibration, important. So what do you do with that number? Why doesn't somebody plot in a spreadsheet, for instance, the influent flow versus rainfall, like you're able to do? Or maybe in the water world, why don't you do a sunny Monday, plot, annotating when weekends occur and when when holidays occur, and see if your water that you're pumping out of your water plant is staying the same for the same amount of customers, or is it growing faster than the number of your customers? That tells me that what's going on is you're losing ground and you're wasting more and more water all the time. Organic system meters. There are lots and lots of ways to install meters within your system and not waste a lot of money. When it comes to I&I, what people normally do when they want to figure out how to meter the water I&I, or the I&I in their wastewater system, is they go out and hire somebody to put some flow meters in their sewer system, and they pay them to put them in, to rent them, they pay them to watch the data, to collect the data, and then to analyze it. Well, that's well and good, but then they come and take it away, and you pay them to pull it out, you pay them to store it, pay them to clean it, pay them to put it back again. That's really, really expensive. I would argue very strongly that you all have pump stations in your sewer systems, and those systems are at the bottom of a sewer shed or a watershed that's being drained by your sewer system. For a very small amount of percentage cost of that pump station, you can incorporate what goes in, a meter into that system, and also the variables change in the storage in that system over time, and you can have a meter that's organic to the system and you don't pay for, and most of you already have a SCADA system of some type for your pump stations, so you've got that information available forever. Is that important? Well, yes. First of all, it tells you when you got a problem coming up and that you need to do something and where, and it also tells you when you fixed it that you've got something, evidence that it's been fixed. That's really important. Attack the low-hanging fruit. If you measure, you will know what system has got the most I&I in it and where you get the most bang for your buck in investigating more to a greater degree and actually doing the work in it. If you've got meters for various zones in your water system and you know which ones are growing faster than the others, you know where to start. I know a lot of people that hire people to put these aerial headphones on and walk up and down country roads and detect leaks. If you don't know what zone in your water system has the most leaks in it and where he should concentrate his time, you're wasting these dollars. You can't afford to do that. You can't manage what you can't or don't measure. It's like putting your head in the sand and expecting things to change. You measure to know the scope of your problem. There is a point where it may be that it's not worth worrying about more water loss that you can't afford. There is a point where a reduction of more I&I is going to cost more than the benefit. You will never know unless you consistently measure and trend that information. You need to measure, as I said, to isolate and maximize your reduction efforts. If you don't measure, you're going to be spending your money where I can think of a couple of really good examples where they said, well, this section of line is got the oldest pipe in it, and that's where all our losses are, and we're going to replace that first. Well, it turns out that some of the newer systems at a higher pressure, because they were lower, were producing 3 to 4 times as much water loss. They would have benefited from knowing and measuring, and which would identify where those losses were and attacking those problems and those problem areas. And you need to measure to demonstrate improvement. I know this because if you have 5 overflows at the same place in your sewer system, and that's usually an indication that you've got I&I problems, then you get on a sewer moratorium. What does a sewer moratorium do? It stops development in that area. Now there are 2 levels of that. There are levels where you self-impose, where you still manage your problem, consent order or a director's order or a commissioner's order from us, and you have to report to us, and that moratorium means you can't tie anybody into that area, a house even, if you don't get the state's permission. Nobody wants that. No city council wants to know that their utility shut down the growth in their city. Okay, so you got a sewer moratorium, and you do the I&I work, or you do the water loss work, and things improve. How are you going to prove it? Am I going to take your word for it? Well, I'm a skeptical regulator. I'm going to say, how do you know?
Show me the
If you haven't got a system in place where you can show it was here, we were receiving this much water, or we're losing this much water at some point, and now look, I've got measurements that show in the same sort of conditions I've made some improvements. If you have the measure, then we're going to believe you. If you don't, then we're going to squabble back and forth about whether we should get you off the moratorium or not. So there are benefits even after you get in trouble for having some kind of measurement. Now I want to talk to you about a principle that I think is a little odd. I call it the Pac-Man Jones inverse principle. If you don't remember Pac-Man Jones was the guy who made it rain at some entertainment facilities in Nashville for a few years. And every story in the paper about Pac-Man Jones and his exploits, where he got in trouble, maybe got arrested, maybe whatever. The story invariably ended with a little sentence at the end that said, you know, nothing ever good happens after 2 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, well, I'm going to tell you now that that's not the case when you're trying to fix and find problems in your collection system or your distribution system. Why is that? Well, it's really easy. Nobody's brushing their teeth at 2 a.m. Nobody's running a dishwasher at 2 a.m. Nobody's taking a shower. Nobody's drinking water. So, if the meter's running somewhere, then something's going on. The water's going someplace that probably you're not being paid for. And so I say, find yourself a couple of night owls, or create a couple of night owls, and have them out there. Now, we talk about measurement. You don't need $1 million instrument that's 18 inches in diameter or something because your pipe's 18 inch. There are things like bypass meters around main valves that you can put a meter in that you've been putting in the same size as on houses, for instance, in your water system, and shut that valve off and look at that meter running and determine and measure accurately how much extra water is running at 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, there's always going to be a little, but if you do it a few times, you learn in this zone, on a weeknight, I should see about this much on that bypass meter. How long does it take to read the bypass meter? Well, it probably takes as long as it takes to shut the valve, open up 2 other valves, and read the blooming meter. How many times you need to do that? Well, you may need to do it once a week, or once every month, or odd numbers to make sure
We
you
have
identify
one zone, that's how big we are.
So it's really important to consider that in the water business. In the wastewater business,
We've got the town
there are
zone.
major cities in the state of Tennessee that made major progress, on their I&I reduction by going out in the rain at night with a simple flow poke and sticking it in the manhole and finding out where the flows were. Well, if manhole A has got X, and then you go up downstream and manhole B has got 5 times X, then that means that is the location between those 2 manholes where you've got some I&I problems or branches coming in. Okay. I almost have to apologize for this slide. Most of you all are already leaders in
On a
your
serious
community,
note, we've got
or you wouldn't be where you are
ways
right
that we
now.
check
Most of
dead end
you all,
lines.
maybe you've been in the
by opening
military,
and closing
or
valves.
maybe not.
But as far as
I
having things
spent a few years in the
to-
military, and I learned
But we can
one lesson.
We have ways
The
that we
first
can
day I
tell
was
if we've got a
in
problem.
and I learned it every day that I didn't do it until I retired. And that is, you get what you inspect and not what you expect. If you mention things at the board meeting about I&I or water loss, you ask questions, you ask what we're doing, what is the cost of water, that's called inspection. I'm not talking about a white glove where you go down and wipe down a fire pit. I'm talking about knowing what's going on. That's the military way to say it. You get what you inspect, not what you expect. Maybe the more civilian, maybe the more civil, maybe the more non-draconian or Machiavellian approach is your people will care about what you care about. That's true. If you mention these things, then at the board meetings, then what happens is the wastewater or water system manager, maybe the city manager in some cases, I'm not sure exactly how you're structured, but he takes note and he turns around to the wastewater treatment plant operator and the plant operator and he asks them, okay, by the next board meeting, we need to answer some of these questions. Or maybe he needs to say, you know, we don't really know what we were going to know because there's a board member that's interested in this. You have a great deal of influence on the financial stability and the maintenance operations and where that effort is being spent in your district, in your utility, in your municipality. You need to use that. This is not just an issue that everybody is okay with and it doesn't mean anything. If you really want to keep rates low for everybody, then you're fighting a tide that's going to inundate you with expenses if you don't start worrying about that. Right now we're losing ground, I believe, in both water loss and in I&I reduction. We're beginning to get people to consider those things as important before they upgrade plants and by what we're doing with the plans review. But in the end, I can't stop you from getting money to do something and then at the end of the day saying, you know, we got to cut something out because we can't meet the budget. We're going to cut out the I&I reduction and the water loss and fill this plan. I can't stop you from doing that plan. But I'm going to tell you, the only way for you to keep rates low and to maintain the fiduciary responsibility you have is to consider this factor. You've got lots of factors. You've got debt, you've got salaries, you've got all these things to worry about. I won't tell you that those things are not important. They are extremely important. But I'm saying this needs to be on your radar too. I&I and water loss reduction. Here's my name and my phone number and my email, and then Angela Jones, who works with me, who even knows more about this than I do right now, and can ask her detailed questions. I did this presentation not too long ago, and I had 5 people come up and one said, you know, I'm that guy. I don't know where the water's going, and I can't fill my tanks. What do I do? There are a lot of people out there that can help you on the deck plates, in the field, and get you started. But you've got to recognize the problem first. So please call us if you need help. We're working to provide training. We're working to emphasize the things that I think will help you make progress in this area. But we got to know, and you got to not be in denial. You've got to come to the realization that it's an issue in your utility. Thank you very much. Good luck and good hunting when it comes to water loss and I&I. Thank you.
All right, that wraps that one up. So, Mike, that was your first one, was it not? Let me cut this camera over.